I joined the army straight out of high school, and this was back in the early 2000s before everything really kicked off overseas. I did not have a scholarship, I didn't have a family business waiting for me, and I sure as hell did not want to work at the feed store for the rest of my life. The army recruiter showed up at our high school gym one day, talked about traveling and structure and getting your school paid for, and that was that. I signed the paperwork, kissed my mama on the cheek, and then hopped on a plane before graduation confetti had even hit the floor. Basic was rough, but I didn't mind it. Something about having a routine, about waking up and knowing exactly what I was supposed to do. It just worked for me. And once I was through, they shipped me out to Germany. I was just 19 years old, barely old enough to buy a beer there, but not enough in the States. But now I was on the government's dime, walking cobbled streets in a foreign country, checking out castles and drinking real beer, and eating kebabs the size of my arm. I honestly could not believe my luck. The base was clean and efficient, like pretty much everything else in Germany. I was stationed outside of Kaiserslautern, and we had access to pretty much everything we needed. The gym, PX, bowling alley, even a movie theater. My job was mostly maintenance support for Humvees and light tactical vehicles, but I would get rotated around sometimes, fill in wherever they needed an extra body. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like a career that was starting to happen. At that age, everything felt new and full of possibility. That was before the drills ramped up, and before the accidents, before things really just stopped being fun. Germany had this weight to it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just hard to explain unless you've actually been there. The buildings are older, the roads are quieter, and the woods are just thicker. Everything is just soaked in history. You can feel it in the air when you were off base, like the whole country had seen far too much and was just waiting to be left alone. But on base, it was different. Controlled, clean, structured. I think that was just the army's doing. You showed up, did your job, and did not ask a lot of questions. Those first few months were pretty easy enough. I worked in the motor pool mostly, getting familiar with the Humvees, doing inspections, and learning how to tear down a transmission without stripping the bolts. But when the joint NATO drill started, everything changed. Overnight, it felt like the base population had doubled. Brits, Polish, Canadians, even the Dutch had rolled in, parking their vehicles wherever they could find the space. A wall of tan and green trucks lined the perimeter. The mess halls got crowded. The lines of the PX were even longer now. Nobody was really sleeping well, but command kept saying it was necessary. Multinational readiness, they called it. The actual drills were fun at first. You get called at 04 to throw your gear on, roll out into a convoy to some godforsaken field or wash. It was wet and cold and miserable, but at least we were doing something. I was assigned a 4-man Humvee crew that ran simulated interface missions. We would drive through pre-planned obstacle courses while other teams tried to intercept or slow us down. It was supposed to be about communication, reflexes, and how we handled stress, but that day, none of it really mattered. It had rained hard the night before. Everything was really slick, mud deep enough to suck your boots clean off if you stepped wrong. We were in this wide drainage wash out past the tree line, about 10 clicks away from base. The idea was to run a series of speed drills, floor it from one end to the other while the opposition crew tried to cut you off. That morning, it was us versus a German team. Good guys, real serious but always respectful. I remember we were waiting for the signal to go down when our driver, a guy named Petrovsky, looked over at me and said, "I bet you $10 you eat shit on the third turn." I chuckled and said, "Alright, you're on." We all knew that section was a pain in the ass. The ground there curved around this collapsed culvert, and the mud had pulled really thick. You could lose control even at a moderate speed. We got the green light and they went first. We watched from the starting line, radios crackling with chatter, as their Humvee tore down that path. I hit the first couple of turns fine, bouncing through puddles and engines screaming like a banshee. Then came that third turn, the sharp one around the culvert. I saw the front passenger side wheel dip too far deep, then rise far too fast. The vehicle twisted, the back end skidded, tires lost purchase, and just like that, the whole thing started to roll. It happened really fast. 1 second upright, the next it was flipping, landing hard on its side. Then again and again and again. The gunner, Jesus fucking Christ, the gunner. He was in the hatch and not belted. Probably thought he was secure enough just bracing with his legs. When the Humvee rolled, the weight of the entire frame caught him mid-spin. He was cut in half. Not clean and not surgical, he was torn. His torso stayed in the hatch and his legs were somewhere on the ground. It literally looked impossible. It was honestly just like something out of a horror movie. Everybody froze. Even the guys in the comms went dead for a second. Then people started yelling. Someone called for a medevac, but there was no point. You don't survive something like that. I couldn't move. I just stared. The top half of him was still upright, slumped over the barrel of the gun, like he might lift his head up and speak. His mouth was wide open. His eyes were too. And honestly, that is what got me. His eyes. They didn't roll back, they didn't glaze over, they just stayed open, wide and blue, staring straight across the wash like he was looking at his team. Blood was everywhere. It leaked from the wreck in thick streams, pooling in the mud and steaming in the cool air. Then the stench hit us a few seconds later. Oil, metal, piss, and meat. Not just blood, I mean it, meat. At least, that is how I remembered it. The medics got there fast. German MPs arrived too and they sectioned off the area, trying to pull the other soldiers out. One guy's arm had shattered, another had a busted jaw and was screaming like a siren. But they were alive. The gunner wasn't. They had to saw the rest of him out, and somebody threw a tarp over the Humvee, but I had already seen everything, and I could not unsee it. We were ordered to stand down. Debrief would come later. For now we were to return to the base and stay off comms and not speak about what just happened. That part was very loud and very clear. Do not discuss the incident. Over and over and over like that would really help. Back inside the truck, nobody said a word. Petrovsky looked pale, and my buddy Nunez lit a cigarette with shaking hands and didn't even smoke it. Just held it and watched it burn. I kept seeing that gunner's eyes. Not angry, not scared. Just confused. Like he really didn't understand what happened. Hell, neither did I. We got back to base and were told to sit tight until they figured out what to do with us. Most of the NATO units were still out in the field, so the place felt half empty, like everybody else had just vanished off into the fog. That afternoon, they brought us in one at a time for statements. Nothing formal. Just somebody from command asking the questions over and over, but in different ways. What did you say? What was your role? Did the German team violate any safety protocols? I kept my answer short. Didn't really have the energy to lie, but didn't feel like giving them anything else either. I just told them the truth. I saw the Humvee roll. I saw the gunner get torn in half. I saw his face afterward. That was enough. They cancelled the rest of the day's exercises. Word must have gotten around fast because by nightfall, the whole vibe had just changed. Soldiers were now deathly quiet. Some drank harder than usual, and nobody cracked any jokes. That kind of death, it just doesn't happen clean. It really sticks to people. We ended up in the rec hall that evening. Just our crew sitting around a plastic table with half-warm beers, and the silence hanging over us like a storm cloud. Nunez finally muttered, "Did you see it? His body?" I nodded. I didn't even want to say it out loud. Like if I kept the words inside, it wouldn't actually be real. Petrovsky threw back another drink and whispered, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight." They signed me up with a base psychologist 2 days later. Didn't even ask if I wanted it. Just told me to report to Building 7 every Tuesday and Thursday for the next few weeks. The guy was fine, I guess. Quiet, clean-shaven. Probably used to seeing guys like me come in with pale faces and 1,000-yard stares. I don't know if it helped, but it gave me somebody to talk to when my dreams got really bad. That was my first taste of how fast life can leave a person. One moment you're standing there breathing that same cold air as everybody else, and then the next, your meat is leaking into the mud. And that really never left me, and I doubt it ever will. I am from Moscow. I am over 30 years old now, but I will remember this story for the rest of my life. When I was a teenager, maybe 16 years old, My friend Sasha, Grinyer, and I ended up in the metro at night. It was the Circle Line. This was in the late 1990s, and back then, the cops weren't really paying attention to stuff like that. It did not seem like a big deal. We brought flashlights, sandwiches, water, playing cards, some newspapers, for wiping or starting a fire, matches and penknives. We brought them because we were going to fight the metro rats, lol. There were 3 of us. In the evening, when the station had emptied out, we jumped down onto the tracks and ran into the tunnel. We expected someone to chase us, but no one did. If a train had come, we figured we would press ourselves against the wall. Luckily, we were still skinny. There would have been enough room. We walked maybe 100 meters and turned into a side tunnel. You can actually see it from the train when you're approaching the station. At first, the adrenaline was fun, but it got scary fast. It was pitch dark except for the flashlight beams bouncing off the walls. We could hear the distant rumble of trains, the hum of pipes along the tunnel. As I walked, I kept thinking, what the hell am I doing? Trying to prove something? I could have been with some girl or at home playing dende, and my friends had all gone quiet too. We kept walking. No station, no exit. What really started to freak me out was when I noticed that the rails were rusty, like nothing had run here in ages, maybe once a year if that. I told the others and they noticed it too. Grinyer, who had been the one hyping up the whole idea, started acting tough, like, what, are we scared now? But I could see on his face that he was scared too. We stopped to take a break. It was close to midnight. Total silence and darkness around us except for our flashlights, and beyond that, just black. It was kind of surreal. We sat there wondering what to do. Should we keep going? What if we did not find anything? Like, what if we didn't find anything? Where would we sleep? On the rails? Not exactly safe. We decided to keep walking a bit longer. If we found somewhere, we would crash there. If not, we'd turn back in an hour. Then, suddenly, our flashlight stopped reflecting off the tunnel walls. The light just disappeared into space. We'd reached a platform, a station, but it was completely dark and clearly abandoned. No signs, no stained glass, just plain concrete pillars and a really high ceiling. Dust was thick on everything. There was no second track, just a wall where it should have been, with no markings at all. The track that we came in on went through the station and kept going, but right at the exit of the station it was blocked by a grate wrapped in barbed wire. The only opening was way up, about 3 meters off the ground. A small gap. We probably could not even crawl through it. We shone our flashlights past the grate. The rails just kept going. We figured we'd found a place to spend the night. As we explored, we saw a stack of old army boxes near one of the pillars. Dusty as hell. The boxes were labeled SA. We joked that maybe they had guns inside, but they were empty. Rotten, old wood, but perfect for firewood. We broke them up and brought them to the edge of the platform, made a small fire. We ate, played cards, and started to relax finally. The fear eventually faded. We set up a toilet area in a far corner. By 2 a.m. we decided to sleep. In the morning, we would head back, wait for a train on the Circle Line, then sprint 100 meters to the next station and try to sneak out before the cops caught us. We lay down in the dark. The fire was just glowing embers now. The others were tossing and turning, trying to sleep. I was lying on my side, just watching the glow, thinking about how to get home faster. I must have fallen asleep. Then I was jolted awake by a scream. I had no idea where I was. The scream kept going, turning into swearing. It was Grinyer. My hands were shaking. A flashlight flicked on. Sasha's. He pointed it at me, and I saw Grinyer sitting beside him, holding his leg. Are you out of your mind? That fucking hurts. He moved his hand and there was a hole in his pants. Some kind of wound. Sasha whispered, I didn't do anything. I swear, I was asleep. Max, are you messing around? I could barely talk. My teeth were chattering. I was asleep too. I don't know what happened. I tried to turn on my flashlight, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Then suddenly, a loud hysterical laugh came from above us. What the hell is that? Fuck, run. My flashlight finally came on, and that is when I totally lost it. There was some kind of fog in the station, thick and unnatural. The laughing was getting louder, manic. Sasha bolted down the tunnel. Grinyer looked at me, tears in his eyes. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. He grabbed my arm and I pulled him up. More sounds followed us now, roaring, echoing through the tunnel. It sounded like something from a horror game, Left 4 Dead or something. That hunter scream, just like that. I dragged Grinja with me. He didn't have a flashlight, must have dropped it, but he ran surprisingly well for someone with a leg wound. The laughing and roaring kept coming, and it wasn't just one voice anymore. It was like a group, but the sounds got fainter. They weren't following us anymore. I don't know how long we ran, but eventually we caught up with Sasha. He was sitting against the tunnel wall, crying. I kicked him lightly to snap him out of it. We all just stared at each other. No one said a word. Then we just got up and started walking back to the circle line in silence. There was no sneaking out. Grinja needed help. As soon as a train passed, I ran out into the main tunnel and made it to the station to call for help. The cops were there, along with some kind of station medic. They patched up Grinja. We got roughed up a bit, but not too badly. Some old guy, must have been in charge, said it was a good thing we made it out alive. He told us people had gone missing in those tunnels before. He didn't say anything else. That's the story. Sorry if I messed up any parts. Every time I think about it, I still shake. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. I was interviewing for a job cross-country. They don't pay for the hotel. I found the cheapest Airbnb I could find. Get there. Key is hidden under a rock. Kinda sketchy. Well, in too deep now. Get in. Barely any furniture. Holes in walls recently patched. Fresh paint in random locations. Doesn't look much like the photos online either. There is also a door which I think leads to the basement that has literally 5 padlocks on it. Want to nope the fuck out, but I am a poor college grad looking for a job. Feel like I'm being watched. Wake up needing to piss. Instead of turning the lights on, I just use my cell phone flashlight. I go to the bathroom. Light briefly shines over the vent in the bathroom. Something reflects back the light. Huh? Grab a chair to get a closer look. It's a fucking camera. Fuck this shit. Call 911 and barricade myself in my room, waiting for them to arrive. Cops show up. Point out the camera. They investigate. Yep, it's a camera. They start checking around. Move a rug that's kinda in a weird place. Dark stains. They think they might be blood. Okay, Anon. This is a crime scene investigation now. We need you to leave. Fuck. Give the cops my contact info, get an Uber, and go to a Denny's that is open 24/7. Spend the night there, not sleeping at all until my interview. Don't get that job because I look like a zombie, didn't shower, and have my luggage with me, even though I explain what happened. Later, the cops contact me on the case. No leads. The info they used to set up the Airbnb account is all bogus. The LLC they used to hotel title for the house is also bogus. Asked what was behind the padlock door. We can't divulge that information, Anon, but be glad you called us when you did. Stay in actual, legit hotels, my fellow Anons. I am 28 years old. After my divorce, I did not have many options for where to go, so I moved into my late grandfather's house, just outside a small town called Chatham in Alabama. The house sits on 10 acres, surrounded by thick woods, and it's completely isolated, quiet, peaceful, and a little eerie. The place is old. Wooden floors that creak, doors that stick, and it always feels cold no matter how high I set the thermostat. But it was free, and I did not have a better option, so I settled in. The first week went by normally. I spent my days unpacking, cleaning, and sitting on the porch at night with a beer, enjoying the quiet. That peace did not last. On the 7th night, just as I was drifting off to sleep around midnight, I heard whistling outside. It wasn't a tune I recognized, slow, off-key, and broken. It sounded like someone walking behind the house, whistling as they went. It was unsettling, but I figured it was a drunk neighbor or a hunter. The next night, it happened again. Same tune, same time, but this time it sounded closer. I got out of bed, turned on the porch light, and stepped outside with a flashlight. Nothing. No tracks, no sound of anyone running off. Just that haunting whistle fading into the woods. It kept happening, always around 1:15 to 1:19 a.m., like clockwork. I started wondering if someone knew I was living out there alone and was messing with me. I eventually called the sheriff's office. A deputy named H came out. He was an older guy, had been around for a while. When I told him what was going on, he got real quiet and said, "Your granddaddy used to call us about the same thing. Said someone was whistling around the property late at night, always in the spring. We never found anything." That shook me. I had no idea my grandfather had dealt with this too. Deputy H just told me to keep my doors locked and stay inside at night. So I did. I double-checked every lock, even jammed chairs under the doorknobs. But it did not stop. The whistling got louder. One night, it was right behind the shed. The next, it came from the front porch. 3 long whistles, then silence. Another night, I swear I heard it coming from underneath the house, through the vents as if someone was in the crawl space. I was terrified and couldn't sleep. The next day, I went up to the attic and found a box of my grandfather's old journals. He'd written about the same thing. For over a decade, every spring, he heard the same whistling. He didn't know who it was, but he believed someone was watching the house. He only ever heard it when he lived alone, after my grandmother died. He used to sit up all night with a rifle by the door, just in case. I called Deputy H again. When he read the journals, he looked worried. He told me, "Don't open the door if you don't know who it is." That night, I sat on the couch with a shotgun in my lap, heart racing. Sure enough, at exactly 1:17 a.m., the whistling started again. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside the house. I could hear it coming from the hallway. I froze. The hallway light was off, and the whistling crept closer. I stood up, aimed the shotgun, and yelled, "Who's there?" The whistling stopped. I flipped the hallway light on, and there was nothing. For 2 nights after that, it went quiet. I hoped it was finally over. But on the 3rd night, just after midnight, I went to bed and left the hallway light on. At exactly 1:17 a.m., I woke to a different sound. Knocking. 3 slow knocks coming from inside the house at the back door. Then silence. A minute later, I heard creaking floorboards in the hallway. Someone was walking inside. Then, the hallway light went out. I grabbed the shotgun, stepped out of my room, and looked down the hallway. Standing at the end of it was a figure, tall, dressed in black, pale face, and perfectly still. I raised the shotgun, hands shaking. "Don't move," I said. The figure slowly lifted one leg, turned, and began to run. I yelled again, but it bolted down the hallway and out of sight. I heard heavy footsteps running out the front door. I chased after it and fired a shot into the darkness, not as a warning, but hoping I'd hit something. I shouted into the night, "Don't come back." The sound echoed through the woods. I locked up, grabbed my keys, and drove into town. I slept in my truck that night. The next morning, Deputy H returned with me to the house. The front door was unlocked. That confirmed someone had a key. Nothing was stolen, but it was clear. Someone had been coming and going. Off the record, Deputy H told me I should consider moving out. Someone in those woods did not take kindly to either me or my grandfather living there. That same day, I changed every lock in the house. Then I packed up and left, staying with my parents out of state for a while. Eventually, we sold the property. We took anything sentimental, sold the rest, and never looked back. To this day, I don't know who it was or why it only happened in the spring. Whether it was some disturbed person living nearby or something else, I will never really know. All I do know is that I'm never living that remotely, ever again. Anyway, this happened at a friend's dacha. It's a remote village, many kilometers from Ryazan. From there, about 100 kilometers more through fields and forest, lies an abandoned village. Who left it and why, no one really knows. People just fled when perestroika started. There is a hunter who lives there, not really lives, but comes during the day to relax. He is a local gamekeeper and knows the whole forest. This guy is a friend of my friend's grandfather, and that is how we met. He took us to the village many times. We shot at cans and did other dumb stuff, but one day, he suddenly said, "Guys, just don't stay here overnight." Of course, that only made us want to stay even more. He didn't really explain why, just said, "No need, that's all." So, here is the deal. 100 kilometers away from any people, close to swamps. And by the way, at night you sometimes hear these awful sounds from the swamps. Anyone who knows the creepy little bird that screams like a dead person will understand. And deep in the forest, we were sitting in one of the few houses still suitable for living. About 5 or 6, actually. Hunters had set one of them up, and that is where we were. No electricity, only candles. We sat playing cards by the window when suddenly, bam, something flashed outside. My first thought was some thieves or homeless folks. My friend grabbed a double-barreled shotgun. I kicked the door open. He jumped out, and I followed. About 3 meters away stood a human-shaped figure. It was pitch black, with the forest behind, so it was hard to see. But the silhouette was huge, about 2 meters tall. The legs were blurry, but the arms and head looked human, no clear details. Without hesitation, my friend fired the shotgun at it. Honestly, he's kind of dumb, and shooting at a person out here is not a big deal. If they found his body, no one would know. The figure took off running, or more like flying. It didn't seem to walk, but glide, zigzagging toward the corner and into the forest. Missing at that distance is almost impossible for a master sports shooter. My friend trained seriously for 7 years, though he quit officially because of mental problems. He never stopped practicing. Moving with that kind of injury would be a nightmare. That is when we really fucked up, or rather, I did. My friend went to sleep on the stove and passed out, while I stayed up all night with the gun, guarding against some unknown horror. In the morning, we found no tracks except for our own. No buckshot either. There is a lot of strange stuff tied to that abandoned village. After seeing that 2-meter shadow, I got curious. I wish I hadn't. My friend's grandfather, the guy who shot, decided to tell us some stories about that place, at night of course. You can imagine how I felt. So, the old man was out hunting, chasing a hare or something, and wandered far. Later, he realized he was near the village. Too lazy to walk in the dark, he wandered around and found a swamp, then a clearing. There were trenches, craters, holes, a battlefield where partisans killed Germans. It was winter and windy. Without thinking, the old man climbed into one of the holes. Later, he realized it was a grave or a solitary trench. Oh, and he had his dog with him. He made a fire, ate, fed the dog, and went to sleep. At night, the dog started barking. When the old man woke and grabbed his flashlight, the dog barked harder. He looked at the pit's whale and saw a shabby boot sticking out, with a piece of bone inside. He must have been knocked away by the wind. He even forgot his backpack there. The old man ran about 6 kilometers, then stopped, and stayed awake with his gun until morning, jumping at every shadow in the clearing. In the morning, braver, he followed the dog's tracks back to where he had run from. Everything was as it should be, except the dog. More precisely, only its fur was there, as if it had been shaved, but the dog itself was gone. The old man took a long time to get down into the clearing, and finally, he caught sight of his backpack snagged on something, and then the dog disappeared. I feel you, man. That early morning fog just coming down and kissing the mountains. Beautiful. Anyway, here is a short little Bigfoot story while I think of another. Step outside at about 12:30 at night for a smoke. Standing at the end of my driveway for a few minutes, just checking out the sky. On the other side of the valley, I live in the V of it. Don't know the exact term for it. I hear 3 wood knocks. On my side, just above neighbor's house, comes 2 knocks. No biggie. They're passing through again. Stand there for another moment or so. Less than 10 feet away, on the other side of a large bush, comes a deep growl. Not a bear, not a mountain lion. That shit was simian, and seemed to say, "Get the fuck out of my way." Clench butt cheeks, and run into the house. Sitting in my room a few minutes later, calming down. hear that same fucking thing at the corner of my back porch. This time it wasn't hostile though, more surprised. Right next to the porch is my pitbull's cage. My face went, Bigfoot told me to fuck off, and was shocked that I had a pitbull.